You are interested in the unusual, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
My name is Ken Lee, and I'm a recovering self-publisher. I haven't used self-publishing in about a week. I have a problem. Actually, self-publishing is something I'm going to speak a little bit about today, being that we're in a bookstore and everything. And then I would like to take you through just how I ought to even begin thinking about a topic as fascinating, complicated, flummoxing, and complex as the issue of UFOs and aliens. So I definitely would like to thank the staff of Bookworks. They've been very instrumental in working out all the details of putting this together. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to stop messing with this in about 5 minutes. There we go. And attendees, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hear me out and for making this event successful as I already consider it. So, self-publishing is something that when I first started writing, I know it existed, but that's maybe 17 years ago when I first started writing. And in internet time, that is a very, very long time. So I'm sure there was self-publishing. It probably had to do with shipping off a manuscript and then having it sent to P.O. boxes or who knows what. So that when I first started writing, for me, it was really not about publishing, but it was about being a therapeutic exercise. That's what I find, is that I have a healthy obsessive side to me, so when I latch on to a topic I'm interested in, I'll dive in head first and I'll do a tremendous amount of research. I'll get deep into all the details, and then it'll just systematize in my brain. It'll just, the puzzle pieces will start coming together, and a lot of them will come together, a lot of them won't, and I do the best I can, but I find that writing for me is that last step in being able to process everything, and finally, here we go, here it comes out, and I'm able to type things out, because I understand that if I can't explain it to somebody else, then obviously I have some more work to do to understand it myself, and that's, to me, very therapeutic, to just get it out of my system in a way that is hopefully comprehensible. And so that's really why I started writing. As I said, back then it was just for me to just put things out of my head. And for instance, there were times where I told a friend, I'm writing about this certain topic, and I'm writing articles, and I'm writing more and more. And he said, why don't you just turn that into a book? And oh, that makes sense. I'll call them chapters instead of articles. But again, back then, there was really no such readily available things such as self-publishing. And self-publishing nowadays, it's gaining a lot more respect. There's even publishing houses that are opening up divisions that focus on self-publishing, because they're recognizing people who self-publish, it's not necessarily because they can't cut it, right? Because they're just not good enough, or what have you, whatever somebody might have thought about self-publishing. But they're recognizing that there's many reasons why people self-publish. So for me, part of the big sell is I can write anything I want, any topic I want, any style I want, and that's a lot of freedom. Another part of the issue is 17 or so years ago, I approached somebody about publishing a book, and they said, okay, it'll be $300-400 for the index. The index, the thing in the back of the book with the words and numbers, $300-400, I'll do that myself, you know. And then I have a friend recently published a book. He spent $700 on a cover design. Okay, now, I don't know about the rest of you. To me, that's just a tremendous amount of money. I have a friend who's getting a book published right now, locally. He's spending $5,000, okay? And he says, oh, that's the works, though. That's the editing, the marketing, the cover, the this, the that. Okay, that's $5,000 just to get it out there. And then I recently spoke to an editor who said, well, I could charge you $5 per page. Okay, you care to do the math, a 100, 200, 500 page book. So that's what you're looking at when you're thinking about trying to put out a product. And these are all independent things, by the way. The editor over here, the book cover designer over there. When you're dealing with an actual publishing house, it's a tremendous expense. And for some of us, it's just not doable. Now, another great thing about self-publishing, as I said, is you can do what you want. So you want to put together a book of family stories, family recipes, poetry, anything that can occur to you. The best part is it doesn't even have to get out there into the world. It doesn't have to get out into cyberspace. So if you submit your book, or at least the system I use, I submit it, and then I choose whether it remains secret or not, right? So that I choose it to go out to Amazon, libraries, or anywhere else. I'm the one to select that. If I don't select that, then I can buy the book, my family can buy the book because I tell them about it, and nobody else needs to know about it. So it can literally be just your own little project for your own family or for your friends or anything. It doesn't have to go out into the world, and then maybe you don't want other people reading your poetry because it's too personal, or you don't want to critique. Who knows? Family stories, again, they might be too private. Publish it yourself. It's all up to you. So those are some really wonderful benefits. And so that's what I've been doing. And additionally, anytime I feel the need to update something, I can just do it myself. Again, I don't have to go through this crazy system. Although on the other hand, it would be very nice to get people who know what they're doing behind you. I'll give you an example. English is my second language, and I'm dyslexic. Okay, so that's kind of like a perfect storm for me. It really does create a lot of problems for me. But so it would be wonderful to have some resources to back me up and go over with a fine-tooth comb. But again, the expense is just really undoable for me. So now, let's get into our topic. Generally, this issue is something I've been reading about since I was in the 6th grade. And I can't pretend I've kept up with it ever since, but it's certainly been in the background of my thinking. Not that there's even that much to have kept up on over the years, because in a way, nothing new has happened. Sure, you have more claims, you have more videos, you have more photos, you do have things happening. But what I mean is, it's always the same as far as there is a great majority of it that can be explained, and then there's that minority that can't. And that's always been the case. Always. That's not changed. So in that sense, that's what I mean is nothing has really changed. And so one of the main things I want to talk about today is contextualizing, right? So I have a personal philosophy. I call it contextual thinking. That is when I set my thinking within the context of what I'm dealing with, right? So I'll give you an example. So I like watching Judge Judy. And people will come into court of law, and she'll start making her ruling according to the law, and they'll say, well, but I feel that, and she'll say, I don't care how you feel. This is the law. And so it's not the sort of context in which decisions are going to be made based on your feelings. And so you have to contextualize your thinking to this is a law-based system, and I have to think within that parameter. And so I can't expect anything that doesn't fit that to be considered here. So anyhow, that's the main thing. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see. No. Yeah, I'll have to kind of point it. So in my mind, if you were to refer to your slide, we'll see. No. Yeah, I'll have to kind of point it. So in my mind, if you were to refer to UFOs and aliens, you have already created a gigantic mess. Because these are the two main categories, aliens and UFOs, and they're not necessarily related, because people claim to have experiences with aliens and they never see a UFO. People claim they see UFOs and they never see an alien. So they're not necessarily connected. Next slide, you see that? Yeah, sometimes they are. Sure, sometimes they are. But you see, I'm trying to get us to think within categories. And the first thing you need to do is you have the two main categories. Sometimes they coincide, sometimes they won't. So that's to sort of step one for me. Okay, so the next slide, we'll focus on UFOs for a second, which is what? Literally, something's up there, I see it, but I don't know what it is. It's that simple. So in that sense, we probably see UFOs, all of us. It's just, oh, what is that? I don't know. Okay, well, there you go. So that's one category, right? That's one category, or sub-category. That's how simple it is. So in other words, you can't launch into a discussion about UFOs without defining your terms, without setting the table for the discussion. So one of the subcategories under UFOs is that I think it's an alien craft. Okay, that is one of the subcategories. And the next one is you have go back one. You have subcategories even under this one. So is the alien craft, and this says nuts, 3D nuts and bolts, or is it like energy or some kind of orb, or is it sort of something that's morphing shape, right? So those are subcategories. When people claim they see alien craft, these are the subcategories behind that, or beneath that. Okay, so the next one is another subcategory that it could be something atmospheric, clouds, ball lightning, just something unusual. That's just a perfectly natural phenomena, but it's unusual to you, so it looks strange, and you start to think about what it might mean, what it might be, what you might have saw, and then maybe later on you remember it, tweaking it slightly here and there. So the next category, still a subcategory. It could be aircraft, could be birds, balloons, satellites, right? I mean, I've been up in the mountains and at Elephant Butte, and we looked at satellites. I mean, you could see them going across the sky. Sometimes it looks like they stop and then they keep going, or they reverse, and they're doing all these things, but that's what it is. Again, could be any of those things. Another category is straight up hoaxes. That's happened. That's well known. And then another one is secret government technology, which would kind of round you back to actual spacecraft. So for example, people began reporting black triangular spacecraft, right? UFOs, aliens. But then we found out about the stealth bomber. So there you go. What does it look like? Black and essentially triangular. And so the issue with the secret government tech is, guess what? It's secret. And that's actually very, very important, because people will say, well, I saw something flying and it was defying everything we know about. Well, wait a minute, everything who knows about technology or physics or what can be done or can't be done, what you know or what these guys working in the secret experiment know? Because they know stuff that's secret. I mean, that's just a fact. And so, again, let me just reinforce, this is what I'm getting at. You can't just launch into a discussion. You need to understand what exactly are we talking about, because there's categories and subcategories and subcategories and subcategories. So let's go to the next one. Now you deal with the other issue of aliens, okay? Well, what does that mean? Well, they might have come from another, okay? Well, what does that mean? Well, they might have come from another universe within our, within the universe. Some people claim they come from within our solar system. Some people claim that they actually come from the far reaches of space. So again, subcategory under alien. Another option is that they actually come from alternate realities, and go ahead to the next one. And now you have subcategories under that one, because what is an alternate reality? Well, it could be there's an M right there. Some people claim it's the multiverse cosmology.
Better.
Thank you. And another one is, maybe it's another dimension within our very own universe, you see. And another one is, maybe it's something to do with spirits, angels, demons, that kind of a realm. And actually that's why, beyond my book on UFOs and aliens, I did bring a few more that deal with the subjects of the angelic realm, generally speaking. In case you're of the mindset to tie those things together, then that'll give you some background on that issue. So the next one, okay, so maybe they're actually bioorganisms and they were born on some other planet and their high tech is such that they're able to come and travel over here. And another one, again, maybe they are spirits, angels, or demons, loop you back to the realm from whence they come, okay? And the other one would be, again, some kind of government operation that makes it appear as if there's some alien involvement, but there's really not, okay? And you see how, and as I was putting this slide together, I was thinking, I'm sure I'm missing tons of potential subcategories, so you see how incredibly complex it can be, but to me it's essential to think about all these things in order to even begin to discuss it. This isn't even a discussion. This is just how do we even start, okay? And so that to me is the most important thing, because when I think about, could there ever be a UFO and alien theory of everything, right? Something that would explain it all. I can't even conceive of how that would be even close to possible, because you have all these categories. So how could you throw all of them into one explanation, right? There's some that do not coincide whatsoever. And so can there be, I mean, yeah, I have people ask, well, what do you think aliens are? I can't even answer it. I can't even answer it in a straightforward manner. Because what my personal opinion might be is one issue, but how to think about whether there can be a theory of everything so that I can give you an answer and pretend it covers everything, I don't even see how that's possible. Okay, so that's one of my points. That's one of my letdowns for you today, that you're not going to get much out of me in those regards, except to help us to contextualize how to even think about it, to even then get into the actual various discussions that would have to take place under all these crazy subcategories. And so there's two really main non sequiturs that I encounter when I'm dealing with this issue. And by that I mean jumps to conclusion, right? So one I touched upon already, and is when people will say, hey, look at this, high tech beyond our abilities, therefore aliens. Okay, whoa, 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 whoa. You don't necessarily have to jump to that conclusion, right? High tech beyond our capabilities that I know of, therefore, maybe I don't know as much as I think I do. Who knows, right? I'm just saying, you don't want to narrow your thinking so that you're making this quick jump to a conclusion. And now, jump to a conclusion that to me is even worse is high tech, therefore aliens. Aliens have high tech, therefore they have high spirituality. Okay, and so now we should listen to whatever they have to say about spirituality or God or what have you. Now, how does that work? I mean, if our astronauts were to land on a populated planet because they know how to pilot a spacecraft, does that qualify them to speak on theological or spiritual issues? That's a complete disconnect. It's a complete disconnect. But that is very common. And again, this is so that you have these things in the back of your head, and when you're starting to hear people talking about this issue, you can say, now wait a minute, let's stop and pull back a little bit. Let's make sure we're understanding what we're talking about. You're some kind of intergalactic engineer, so therefore you know a lot about God. Maybe you do, but it is a jump to a conclusion. You see that? And these two non sequiturs are very, very common. You'll encounter them all the time. So now I'd actually like to tell you about my own UFO experience that happened earlier this year. And I'm going to ruin it ahead of time. It didn't have anything to do with aliens. There was nothing really exciting or outlandish. So I won't need to wear this, okay? Although if I did, I would look like a Hershey's Kiss. I don't know. That might be a good photo op. So, due to an alarm, I found myself standing outside the building of let's say, a nationally relevant laboratory. And after a little while, everything got resolved, and it was interesting because I'm standing here. There were maybe a fourth of the people over here and a third over here. There was maybe 30, 40 people. And the fourth over here started walking back into the building, but the 3/4 didn't. And I thought, am I some kind of Milgram experiment? Like, what do I do? Do I go with this group or do I stay with this group? If you know Milgram, that's the kind of psychological experiments they would run. So I'm walking back towards the building, and I look over here, and I see the firemen and some people staring out into the direction, which is another Milgram experiment, by the way. And I look over, and there's this, well, I don't know really what it was. I could just describe it. It looked like a black cylinder, just like that, black, right there in the sky. It was maybe 12 feet up, and maybe 30, 40 feet away from me. And, there it was. It was maybe 4 inches by, I'd say, about 10 feet. And it was floating. It didn't appear to be piloted. Now, yeah, there's people who work in that area who do run all kinds of experiments all day long, so I don't know what that really was. I turned to one of the guys standing next to me, and I said, "What's that?" And he says, okay, I'll just say it. He goes, sorry guys, he said it's a flying turd. I'm sorry, that's just what he said, because this thing is just gonna, now the thing about it was obviously being pushed by the wind, no question about it. It was moving in the direction of the wind. The one thing I did find strange is it was literally like this the whole entire time, and I watched it until it looked like a grain of rice. It was so far away. Meaning it remained parallel to the ground, and it remained orientated to east and west. It wasn't like being blown all over by the wind. So anyhow, that's it, all right? I'm just saying, it was something, it was in the sky, and I don't know what it was, okay? So I did officially see a UFO. But the main reason I'm really telling you that, let me throw in one more detail. So the next time I saw some firemen hanging around our building, I noticed that on top of their truck they have these black cylinder-looking things. So I said, are those things filled with helium or who knows? I don't know what. Could it have just unlatched from your truck and floated away? They said, yeah, there's no way. These things are like 40 pounds and whatever. It was more like a hose, really. So they didn't know either. The main reason for me mentioning it, it made me a bit more empathetic about all these horrible claims we have of these horrible videos of UFOs where it's a dot in the sky. I'm sorry, I can't be impressed. Because by the time I thought, oh yeah, gosh, I have a cell phone with me. Let me get it and take some video. Well, it happened to be the cell phone that my wife had given up for a new one because it literally held a charge in its battery for like 10 seconds. I mean, seriously, I used it to take a couple photos and that was it. So I take it out and, okay, it died. And then I got my iPod too. Well, my iPod is like 15 years old. There's no zooming capability, nothing. And by the time I got it running, I didn't even bring the video because it's just not worth showing you. Just imagine a black piece of rice in the sky. That's what you would see. Okay, so at least that made me more empathetic to, by the time that I thought, let me try to record it in some way, it was like, okay, it's just not even worth it, So I think primarily what you would think of is, look at that, I wonder what that is. And then process that I might want to get some kind of record of it. Now I think maybe the younger kids, they're like, they got their devices in their hands like a claw the whole day, so they might be more apt to, I can do this right away. But for me, that's at least something I learned from it, is to just kind of be a little more empathetic about that. So now, one of the things, obviously, I call the book 50 Shades of Grey Aliens, as a pun, obviously. People have reported experiences with all kinds of shapes and sizes of aliens you could imagine, some you couldn't imagine. Some conveniently that look exactly like human beings. I find that incredibly convenient. I happened to have heard a talk by somebody who said, yeah, you know, back in the day, I used to give lectures and I used to pretend to be an alien. You know, that's what he did back in the day. And why? Because it just so happens these particular aliens look just like human beings. Okay, well, that's pretty easy. But, so, I did focus on the gray, the typical gray alien. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, hold on. I overlooked this. Let's go to the next one. And I'm sorry, I overlooked this. So another category, of course, is the human experience. So let's go to the next one there. Could have been dreams, okay, maybe hallucinations, maybe a hypnotic suggestion. That is a huge topic. I overlooked this. Let's go to the next one. And I'm sorry, I overlooked this. So another category, of course, is the human experience. So let's go to the next one there. Could have been dreams, okay, maybe hallucinations, maybe a hypnotic suggestion. That is a huge topic. Okay, next one. And then you have close encounters, under which there are subcategories, you know, first, second, third degree. You know about that, right? The different degrees of. And then there's people who call themselves experiences, abductees, contactees, channelers. Also, even under this category, you have all these subcategories and more. And what is the human experience relating to these phenomena, right? Now, I would like to touch upon channelers for a second, because to me that is extremely telling, certainly bizarre, that when you listen to people who claim to channel aliens from wherever they might come, and when you listen to people who claim to channel the spirits of dead humans, they have the same shtick. Which to me, it's so bizarre that how come they're doing the same things? Now, how come you can communicate with a dead human being as you can with an alien from who knows where? And that's something to think about, and I might touch upon that a little bit more towards the end. But one of the conveniences of the channeler is they may have never seen an alien and never seen a UFO or spacecraft or nothing. That's part of the convenience. They can just claim to be having these experiences, and there needs to be no relation to any of the phenomena. So you see why it's important to critically think about these things, because now you're talking about a category of experience wherein you have no connection to UFOs or aliens. You see, that's a whole other ballgame right here. Okay, so now we can go to the next one. So I started thinking about, well, how did we end up with this concept of your typical gray alien, small, short, shriveled body, gray alien, small, short, shriveled body, diminutive, large head, big eyes, small nose if any, little mouth, no ears. And when I started doing my research about that visage, right, that image, that concept, I was really done the second I started, because I looked at 1893, H.G. Wells. He wrote an essay called Man of the Year Million, and this was his concept of what human beings would look like in the future. So little shriveled up, tiny bodies, because we would have our technology doing so much for us, we wouldn't really need physical labor anymore. And with that, or so he imagined, would come more intellectual exercise, so the brain would grow, and of course if your brain's going to grow, it'd be nice if your skull grows along with it. And with the growing skull would come a growth in the eyes, and you wouldn't really need a very active mouth, because he depicted them as being in these pools of nutrients that would just absorb into their body. And so to me this was extremely important, because I had run into statements by 4 people who are roughly in 3 different circles of phenomena, who all said, well, we think that these gray aliens are really human beings traveling from the future to our current day. And I thought, oh wow, that's interesting. That must be like some kind of new thing that people are coming up with as an explanation, right? Because again, this phenomena is so incredibly obscure and complicated that people are constantly coming up with ways to attempt to explain it. And so I found, well, this is really one of the original concepts. Now, you see there's a disconnect here because he's not saying these are aliens, he's saying these are future humans. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Now, this is from a book called Etidorpa. Okay, it's Aphrodite backwards, by John Uri Lloyd, 1885. And so what is he depicting here? These are inner earth dwellers, less than 5 feet in height, skin the color of light blue putty, his forehead extended in an unbroken plane from crown to cheekbone, and the chubby tip of the abortive nose, the nostrils, formed a short projection. There was also no semblance of eyes, for there were no sockets. Okay, so the reason I'm throwing this in there is it's lacking the eyes, but everything else falls within the stereotypical gray alien depiction. Actually, I see this young lady here has one on. There you go. Humans aren't real. I absolutely love it.
My favorite. May I ask?
Yes.
This is a book?
Yes.
By whom?
John Uri Lloyd. Again, just look for it as Aphrodite, but spell it backwards. Yeah. Okay, next one. Okay, next one. This is, if anyone recognizes the name Aleister Crowley, perhaps the most infamous black magician, I don't know, of all time. In 1919, he claimed to have had experience with a being he called Lamb, who he claims channeled to him a text that is called the Book of the Law, which is just absolutely horrendous. I just leave it at that. But anyhow, this is his depiction of Lamb, and I thought, well, there's very much that same exact gray alien depiction, and what I did is to show that, yeah, it has tiny little eyes in the drawing, but above it you can see that there is the outline of what would become the typical gray alien eyes, the large ones. And so I have no idea what he was dealing with, but such was his claim. Okay, next one. Okay, next one. And this is from the OTO, the Order Templi Orientis, which Crowley was involved in. You're talking black magic again, and for why they're depicting some being they're dealing with to be very much in the same visage. Don't ask me, but I'm just showing it for context there. Okay, next one. And so this is where we get into the fact that our culture gets its philosophy very much from fiction. It's just a fact, right? We go to movies, we get our philosophy. We read books, we get our philosophy. This is how you end up having people reading a novel and thinking that they've learned true facts, okay? The novel might contain facts, but you need to recognize the genre. And so the golden era of sci-fi and comic books was very heavily into this sort of concept. Now what you have here is the machine man of our Datya, and so what you're looking at is a visitor from another time or place, and basically a very gray alien-like depiction, shriveled up diminutive body, large head, and so on. So as a traveler from the future, incidentally. Okay, next one. And now you have the man who evolved, right? And so the concept is, this is a person who has essentially gone into what we would look like in the future. And what do you have? Shriveled up little body, gigantic head. Same basic concept, okay? Next one. Here is, the caption is, "One more jolt of my evolution," right? and you'll become a giant bodiless brain just like me. So same concept. This is envisioning what humans would look like in the future, and you have this diminutive body and a large head. Okay, next one. Here from 1934, you have a story, If Tomorrow Comes, okay, so it's obviously pointing us to future humanity, and that depiction is almost exactly, it's almost just a mirror image of the one in your shirt, color and all. And so then I showed the one for Whitley Strieber's book because that's one of the most recognizable depictions of this particular being. I will talk a little more about Strieber, but I'd like to point out, don't ask me what it means, but there was a local coffee shop that had books. You could go there, buy some coffee, and pick a book off the shelf, read it, put it back when you left. And so I read a couple of his books doing that. One night I happened to read that he says, symbolism are common to alien contactees is triangles and eagles. And then I walked home and I noticed that the bottle of the ginger soda that was my favorite back in the day, there was an eagle in a triangle. So again, I don't know what to make of that. It's just something that happened and I go, oh, there you go then. What do I do with that? So, next one. Okay, so same kind of concept. This is the all thinking. Is very, very diminutive, odd body and a large head, okay? Even the Wizard of Oz got into the act. I mean, that is a very gray alien type head there for the Wizard of Oz in 1939. Okay, next one. Again, the world of when? Of tomorrow. And you see this man is still very much human-like, but the head is definitely getting out of control there. You got a big head about the whole thing. Comic books, right? You see the emphasis is on this sort of Ubermensch really as Superman is, and his pal is becoming other than, okay? So go to the next one and you'll see that this even happens to Superman himself at one point. See, Superman of the future. All right, next one. This happened to the Flash. Same thing. Okay, in this case, it's not so much the head size, but that it is the basic almond shape, as they call it, with the gigantic eyes. And Venom is the one on the on your. You see, it's that dyslexia. I can't even figure out how to. This direction, your left. In some versions of the Venom story, Venom is an alien, actually. Okay, go to the next one. Here from the Outer Limits, visitor from the future. He's a strange-looking little man, suddenly appears on every channel, every television set around the world. As he speaks, his voice is translated into the language of each country. The man is broadcasting from the year 3000 AD. Okay, so again, there's a future human being for you. Same basic shape. Okay, go ahead. Now this is from the movie IA. See that? I did it again. Is that dyslexia for you? AI, let's try it that way. Hey, artificial intelligence. And has anyone seen it? Steven Spielberg movie, Artificial Intelligence? Okay, this is right at the end of the movie. And these are not aliens in the movie. What are these in the movie? They are silicon-based artificial intelligence from thousands of years in the future. So again, why this kind of depiction? I don't know. I'm just tracing it down. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay. So, thus far, the point has been that all along, what became the stereotypical gray alien was originally depicted as what human beings would look like in the future. That is how the sci-fi literature and comic books treated it. And along the way, all of a sudden, hey, they're actually aliens. Seeing that switch was made. That in the book, I have about 100 pages of those kind of examples, like I just showed you a few. There's probably 100 pages that just really take you down from the late 1800s to more modern times and show that progression. This is more about the fact that people would have seen depictions such as the one on your right that are from movies, sci-fi movies. But then the one on the left is someone who claims to have had an experience with an alien, and that was their description. So people are obviously seeing things in movies and comic books, and then just having some kind of psychological issue where they end up claiming, wow, I had this odd experience and it was an alien. But you can see right there where they're getting these ideas. Go to the next one, please. Same kind of idea. Betty and Barney Hill depiction, and other claims to have seen. Now, the Hill case is really fascinating because their original description of the beings with whom they were dealing was Barney referred to them as being Scottish and being Nazis, is the word he used. Okay, so they were obviously having experiences with just human beings who somehow managed to capture them and abduct them. And Barney is very clear that he thought they were Germans. Remember, this was way back in the early 1900s. He said they were wearing your typical uniform. He said they were Nazis, and he said some of them looked to be Scottish because of their ruddy appearance. Then all of a sudden they get involved in progressive hypnotic suggestion, and all of a sudden they're aliens. All of a sudden they're very much unlike the human beings they originally depicted. So anyhow, go to the next one, please. Same kind of idea. You see the basic form emerging of the gray alien. Go to the next one. Okay, there you go. Even Mork and Mindy, even shows which depict the alien uniform being a certain way in popular or TV and movies, and all of a sudden people start saying, no, I had this experience, and this is what it looked like, right? So that they're just kind of combining something that they saw in fiction depicted to them, and then imagined or dreamed or hallucinated or who knows what, that they actually had this experience. Okay, go to the next one. Same thing here. Same exact thing. And, okay, go to the next one. Some of the Hill depictions versus the movie portrayals. These are the later descriptions they gave, okay? Next one. And these are examples. This is 1950, obviously, old examples of hoaxes. There you see the original photograph. These military men are hanging out with a little boy, and someone superimposed upon them this kind of alien-looking thing. So that now you say, well, see, back in the day, they actually captured some photos. No, they didn't. Go to the next one. Same thing here. Same thing here. It's these guys standing alongside a baby cart, and all of a sudden the photograph was manipulated. 1950 again. So this stuff goes way back. Okay, next one. And this is one of the endorsements I got that I appreciated very much from Joseph Jordan. He was involved with MUFON for about 3 decades. You know, these are the guys who actually will, if you claim that you've had an experience with the UFOs and aliens, they're the ones that will come to you and do the investigation and interview you and all that stuff. And so he had, I could actually borrow some of your work to answer some questions people have asked me. Kudos to what you did with this book, and I was very appreciative of that, and really, really blown away that a guy who's been involved in this probably since before I was born was kind enough to say that kind of thing to me. Okay. So let's go to the next one. This is just some of the examples of my chapter headings, okay? And so demonology and theosophical aliens, again, because a lot of people take the view of that either high-tech, therefore aliens, therefore high spirituality, or that they are some kind of angelic or demonic beings. And so theosophy got involved in that. And demonology involves itself with that to some degree. And as I mentioned before, likenesses between spirit channeling mediums and alien contactees or experiencers, right? That's what I mentioned earlier. Then the issue of whether they are actually traveling through time, and that's where you get into these concepts of, is it human beings traveling through time, or is it aliens who came about the same time we did, but then they're able to manipulate time. The how, what, and how of alien messages. Because really, when you distill down everything that aliens are supposedly telling us, and you cut through the fluff and the puff, and is there ever a tremendous amount of fluff and puff in that, okay? If you try to really distill it down, they seem to be telling us three main things. And if you understand the concept of misinformation, right, you wrap a big lie around some truth so it seems believable. So in this case, they would tell us, you human beings are always fighting due to politics, your countries are fighting each other, your governments are fighting each other. Yep, okay, I'll definitely go with you on that. You humans are always fighting each other about religions and theology, you're always having conflicts. Yep, I'll definitely go with you on that. You humans are polluting the earth. You're destroying the earth. Yep, I'll definitely go with you on that. All right, that's the three main things that they're here to tell us. Regardless of who the person is claiming to have these experiences, that's the bottom line. But what's their solution? Well, form a one-world government, form a one-world religion, and then worship the earth as Gaia, or whatever you want to call it. So, why is that exactly what you'll read in the book of Revelation? How is it that these aliens figured out that what we should do is that against which we were warned? So you see, do they make good points? Absolutely. I'm with them on those points. But their solution, that's another issue. So then that obviously gets us to, are there UFOs and extraterrestrial aliens in the Bible? Because a lot of people claim that, so I kind of had to go through what is the flying scroll, what is the wheels within wheels in Ezekiel, and all these issues. Sean Stone, I'm going to get to him in a second. Then there's pop celebrities and aliens, because for some odd reason there's a lot of pop culture celebrities and a lot of pop singers who are just fascinated with aliens. It's really bizarre, but they are the ones that are putting a lot of these concepts out there, these concepts of spirituality. And Manly B. Hall, I found interesting because he's the premier Freemasonic philosopher, and he actually wrote a paper about UFOs and a craft that he personally had seen. So it's really interesting to hear his take on that issue. L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology, because it is a fact. It's just a simple fact that Scientology is a UFO religion, okay, as much as Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam. It is just a fact that one of their main premises of both those groups are spacecraft and aliens. Okay, next one. Now, Martin Buchanan, the controllers and the hypothesis of alien abductions. Unfortunately, that is not new because he wrote that back in the 90s, and I would absolutely love somebody to update his book. So what he does is talk about what then was the latest high tech, and talks about how you could duplicate these abduction experiences just by known technology, such as implants. There's a very, very famous video of a scientist who had implanted a microchip in a bull, right, like a cow, a bull brain. and you see him charging at him, and he hits a button, and the bull stops dead. Right? I mean, there's ways to do this. There's what's known as voice to skull technology, where if there's a billboard over there, and I'm standing here, I can hear it, but if I'm standing here, I can't, because it's not sound waves. Okay, there are a different kind of wave being directed and amplified to your skull. There's a Project Bluebeam. I don't know if it's ever been tried, but you could holographically depict over the sky of some city some kind of deity, or whatever. I mean, this isn't even like super secret high tech. This is just kind of run-of-the-mill stuff everybody in a certain circle knows about. So anyhow, Martin Cannon's point was that you could most certainly experience all these abduction type phenomena, and it has absolutely nothing to do with aliens, but it's just certain high tech. Billy Meyer and the Klajarans, I'm actually going to talk about that in a second. I couldn't write anything on this issue without dealing with Eric von Daniken and Robert Temple and Travis Walton and Whitley Strieber. So I'll tell you something interesting about Walton and Strieber. So they both had movies made about their experiences. And in both of them, I noticed they reached a point where they recognized this gray alien was not an actual biological being, but it was just a mask, right? So in Walton's case, in the movie, he realized it was the alien's spacesuit. They didn't actually look like that. And in Strieber's case, there's a point in the movie where he actually pulls off like the bottom half of the alien's face, and he realizes that, oh, there's something underneath. And he says, oh, this is like a Chinese doll thing, right? I mean, there's layers upon layers. You're not actually going to let us see you. Well, I thought that was very interesting. So I contacted both of them, and they both said, you know what, that's just Hollywood movie stuff. That was not our experience. So that was too bad, because that would have actually been really interesting to follow up on. But just so you know, movies are what they are, right? So Gene Roddenberry, of course, involved creator of Star Trek. Okay, any Trekkies out here? Okay, if you don't know what a Trekkie is, then you're not a Trekkie. So he was heavily involved in psychical research and that kind of thing. The Maturity Messiah, Project Bluebeam, that's the same kind of thing. That I just realized something that I was talking about relating to Martin Cannon. And actually, it appears that when I posted This Happens, I noticed in Word, the Word program, the end of the sentence should be NWAO, which means New World Order. But if you do that and then you hit Enter, then Word will autocorrect. And so it reads now, but I'm hoping I actually didn't do that in the book. In the book itself. Yes, NWO, okay. It was just when I was preparing this that happened. And then ancient atheist aliens is because it is also very common for atheists nowadays to appeal to aliens as sort of, well, we know that the universe really is starting to appear fine-tuned. We know God didn't do it, God forbid, so aliens. You know, and so I gave a lot of examples about their claims in that regard. Okay, let's see what's up next. Okay, so that's it for the slides. What I did want to mention, lastly, is so again, obviously, that was just a taste. And so in the book, I took very much of a shotgun approach, right? I'm taking you in every conceivable direction to show you examples of how very different people have very different opinions on this phenomenon, and how it really does get really complicated and fascinating and frightening. And that's what the book is really about. Me just showing you the wide girth that is not this issue, these issues have. One of them that is rather telling and I can't seem to get away from it, is the occult aspect, which would really be really unexpected if we're dealing with beings that are just traveling from who knows where to have conversations with us. MIT, okay, so not exactly purveyors of wild conspiracy theories. MIT once did a presentation about SRA and UFOs, okay, so the claims that some people make that they were ritually abused, satanic ritual abused, and then on the other hand, people who claim to have had experiences of abduction with aliens, and they ended up putting out a chart saying, look at all these similarities, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, point. These people are saying a lot of the same exact things. And to me, one of the most fascinating people involved in these phenomena is Whitley Strieber. For one, you guys recognize the name Whitley Strieber? Okay, he's been the poster boy for contact with aliens for decades and decades and decades. Okay, he started as a sci-fi writer. Well, maybe not necessarily sci-fi, but fictional writer and author for sure. And then he's been known for this for decades and decades and decades, and he has never once claimed that he has contact with aliens. Not once. Okay, so he calls them visitors to kind of distinguish. He's not necessarily claiming that he's dealing with biological entities from another portion of the universe. And to me, Whitley Strieber really embodies many of the categories and subcategories in one person, okay? I think of him as sort of the Bertrand Russell of these phenomena, because if you know Bertrand Russell, throughout his life, he was taking so many different views and changing his mind on so many different things that he was all over the place. And Whitley Strieber is very much like that, in that he's tried to figure out what's been happening to him for decades. Now, this is a statement he made, one of his original conceptions of what was happening to him. He says, I felt an absolutely indescribable sense of menace. It was hell on earth. I couldn't move, couldn't cry out, couldn't get away. I lay as still as death. Whatever was there seemed so monstrously ugly and filthy and dark and sinister. Of course they were demons. They had to be. Okay? So I'm sorry to read something so dark, but that was his original reaction. Now, as I listen to Strieber, every now and then he would mention that he had ties to the CIA, to the military. Okay, I'm going to put that in the back of my head as a file of who knows what to do with this. And then one day he puts out a talk where he comes right out and says, I was a victim of MK Ultra mind control. Now, I don't know if he was. I'm just telling you what he is saying, okay? So, during the 70s, it came out, congressional hearings and everything, on experiments run under the auspices of the CIA that were called MK, and there were a slew of them, MK Naomi, MK this and that and the other. MK Ultra was one of them, and it did have to do with what people would generally refer to as brainwashing or mind control. I'm just saying that's what was discussed at the congressional hearings. That's just out there. It's known. It's not like, I don't need to get my little hat, okay? And so anyhow, that's what Strieber claims. And he also claimed that when he was younger, he underwent Skinner therapy, okay? Skinner treatment was basically a very rudimentary form of sensory deprivation where you literally stick a child inside of a box and you close it. Okay. Again, did he go through all that? I have no idea. I'm just saying that's what he claimed. And so my point is, if you're getting my point, is part of him thinks this seems to have been some kind of demonic activity. Part of him is saying, well, this had to do with the government and the fact that I was tied up with the CIA and military. You see, he's going in all these different directions. So now, there's a readily available video. I'm sure you could find it by searching for alien interview or something like that. And it claims that at this military base, there was an alien that lived there for a while, and wouldn't you know it, you get a video footage of him hanging around, and by golly, he happens to die right there in the middle of the video being shot. Okay, whatever. But to me, it was an obvious puppet. Okay, I mean, just obvious puppet. Okay, take it from someone who's watched the Muppets since they were a child. It's obviously it was a puppet. All you have to do is look at it. But they said, well, you know, we interviewed Whitley Strieber for this documentary, and he was so shaken up when he saw the footage, he didn't even want to appear on camera. But he said, if that's not an actual visitor, then whoever made that puppet knows how they move. Okay? I'm thinking, well, the way it moves is obviously being puppeteered. I mean, it's obvious. So then I think, well, okay, if Whitley Strieber says the beings with whom I have had experiences are just like this, then that tells me maybe he did undergo some kind of hypnotism, whatever you want to call it, brainwashing, mind control, and they were trotting out these puppets and having him interact with them, and he ended up thinking, wow, I'm having real experience with whatever these visitors are, you see? That was really, it's interesting to me, and it's heartbreaking if the guy actually has been that manipulated. It's really heartbreaking that the guy's been through that. And then you have the aspect of Whitley Strieber being viewed as some kind of spiritual leader, because that actually ends up happening to a lot of supposed alien contactees, is they end up with this messiah complex. It's just something that happens, and it's almost inevitable. And so in Strieber, you have all these scenarios, all these potential explanations tied into one person that to me is fascinating. And so the point about occultism is he first consciously started having these experiences in his meditation room, okay? And so he's involved in an exercise that essentially opens him up, and so something decided to come on in. Although later in his life, then he says, well, actually, I remember that I've had these experiences since childhood, so there you go. Then there's Billy Meyer, and I'm mentioning in this context, because he claims to have had experiences with aliens beginning when he was living in an ashram in India. And one of his main contacts, one of the main aliens he's dealing with, is called Samyaza. And who is Samyaza? Well, that name happens to come from the apocryphal book of Enoch as being the name of one of the main fallen angels. Okay, so again, did he have those experiences? Is that an actual name of something that appeared? I don't know, but I'm just telling you it's odd. And many researchers have noticed that a lot of the supposed names of these supposed aliens can be traced back to ancient gods and goddesses and demons and angels. And it's just a fact. It's pretty simple. Then there's Barbara Marciniak. And she states that in May of 1988, I followed an enticing impulse and went on a sacred journey tour to Egypt and Greece. The last stop was Delphi, where unbeknownst to me, female oracles in trance states had served as official soothsayers for centuries. I had a strong impulse to return to my room and practice channeling. I sat down on the floor with my back against the bed, recalled my visit to the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, and said out loud, I intend to be a clear channel now. After a few minutes, I began to speak in a voice other than my own, and the source soon identified themselves as Pleiadians. Okay, so my reason for pointing that out is you see this interaction, right, between the occult, by any other name, and aliens. What she went through, trance states, soothsaying, channeling, what does that have to do with aliens, right? So again, it's a non sequitur, or it's a jump to conclusions, or it's something disguising itself as aliens that connected with her because of her desire. And incidentally, for decades now, she has claimed to have been in contact with aliens from the Pleiadian star system, and many people do. But according to Billy Meyer, anyone claiming to be in touch with Pleiadians is automatically identified as a hoaxer, a fraud. That's what he claims. And incidentally, he himself claims to be in touch with the Pleiadians until, we started to understand that region of space much better, and it didn't appear as if anything could ever live there. So he decided, actually, they're Plagiarians. So they kind of changed location, and now he can say anyone who claims to be in touch with Pleiades is a fraud. Hey, let them infight if they want to. Lastly, I mentioned I was going to talk about Sean Stone, and this is really quick, and then I'll wrap it up. We'll have Q&A. Sean Stone, son of the famous director Oliver Stone. Okay, he was on Jesse Ventura's TV show called Conspiracy Theory. They do an episode on Skinwalker Ranch, Robert Bigelow's estate, I guess, that he took over. Anyhow, the premise of the show is aliens and UFOs. Okay, so there you go. There's your context. Now they're at Skinwalker Ranch at night. Actually, they're driving there, and through the car radio, you can hear something saying "true evil, evil, so evil." Okay, I'm not sure why aliens would want to tell you that kind of thing, but hey. And yeah, I mean, it's a really kind of cheesy electronic voice. Very easy to fake, but whatever. My point, again, is this is what they're claiming. They're claiming aliens were communicating to them through their car radio on the way to Skinwalker Ranch, and they decided to say this kind of stuff. So they're at Skinwalker Ranch at night, and they're looking around. Oh gosh, I don't see any UFOs. No. So then one of them says, "Hold on a second. You all right, Sean? What you got, Sean? What are you doing?" And he's kind of standing there like this, with his eyes closed, his hand out. And he says, "Inviting the spirits to come out." Now, if you've gotten my point all along, you should think, wait a minute, that's uncontextual. You're supposed to be dealing with aliens and UFOs, and you're talking about spirits, and you're inviting them to come out. And then the narration says, Sean's ritual paid off. And well, on the screen you see a black sky with a red dot. And I guess whatever, that's it. It's a UFO is what they're saying. So again, you see, my point is the critical thinking and how you can't just jump from one category to the other one like that. Because what ends up happening is once you reach a conclusion, it's going to be based on quite a few leaps and jumps and things that don't necessarily go together. So the main focus of the book, again, is just to look at these phenomena far and wide and from every conceivable angle. No, by the way, on the last page, I won't say, see, I resolved the whole thing. Sorry. That is not the point, but it's more about like taking this journey and understanding how to contextualize the complicated and fascinating issue of aliens and UFOs.